Yeah, that's a great question, man. No one's ever asked me that. I think there is an educational component to this. You have to learn somehow. You can learn through osmosis by being around other people who are there. You can read by reading a book. Like if you want to be a good COO, read the book Traction from Gino Wickman. If you want to be a good CEO, read the book 4 Disciplines of Execution by Chris McChesney. Those books will help you get there. If you want to be a good architect, read some biographies of Richard Branson and Elon Musk.
Welcome back to the Service Representative host, Aaron Hale. This is Point of Impact. And today's guest needs no introduction, but it's kind of my job, isn't it? So, however, whether you're just getting started in real estate or you're a seasoned investor, you probably heard the name or recognize the beard. That's right. The bearded Brandon himself, Brandon Turner, is sitting down with us today. And he's got a lot to share. He's an incredible interviewer and an equally great guest, though you can tell he really loves turning the microphone around and asking the questions. This episode is chock full of awesome knowledge bombs. And we talk about quite a bit. See, he made his name, first made his name as a blogger and co-host of the Bigger Pockets podcast. He's a prolific author. And he's the founder of Open Door Capital, a real estate investment firm with over $1 billion of assets under management. He moved his family out to Maui, where he founded and is the host of Better Life podcast and Mastermind, which is incredible because 100% of the proceeds from each go entirely to charity. He's an incredible man. And like I said, he's quite accomplished. Today, we discuss a lot of stuff, real estate among them, but mostly about mindset and perspective, framing. And we talk about entrepreneurship, productivity, and work ethic and the phases or levels of an entrepreneur. And even though this episode is packed full of incredible wisdom from an accomplished person, as accomplished as he is, stick through to the end because he shares a bit of a jaw dropper when I ask him, what's next? We'll get to that in just a moment. First, I want to ask you to accomplish something small for me and pay it forward for others. Whatever platform you're on, Apple, Spotify, I want you to give the show 5 stars, subscribe, follow, leave it a review, leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment over there. Please, I will get back to you and we'll answer your comments. And I appreciate all of them. And all of that will tell the platforms, the algorithms, that this show is worth watching and sharing and spreading out to a larger audience. But go one step further. And this is how you really become catalyst and become that point of impact. Share it on your social media pages, share it in email, word of mouth, text it to 2 or 3 people that you know and you believe will appreciate my episode with Brandon Turner and other episodes to come. That's how you become that point of impact. Without further ado, my conversation with Brandon Turner. Brandon, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have this conversation, and I've been looking forward to it for a while.
Dude, me too. I've been looking forward to this since you invited me on and since you were out here in Maui and we did the best podcast of all time with you. So I'm gonna say best of all time.
Well, I appreciate that. I was a little embarrassed because I know tend to be a motor mouth, especially when I get to meet somebody I've been a fan of for a while since I started my real estate journey. So yeah, it was great. But I want to get right into it and don't want to waste a minute of this. And speaking of meeting my fans, meeting a fan, meeting me being a fan of meeting you. You're not, I don't know if you're a fan of mine, but uh, no, you started off as a blogger, right? And was that at Bigger Pockets, or did you start blogging elsewhere, or how did you even get into real estate? You started with investing in a duplex. How did you get your start?
Yeah, let me walk you through it. So the blogging came a little bit. So it's like there's like four phases, we'll say, of my career. I'll sum up real quick. There's four phases. Phase one, I got into real estate investing, buying, a single family house. I rented out the bedrooms. I got to live for free. Didn't know what I was doing, but that was like phase one. And then I bought some duplexes, some triplexes, some like little tiny deals in a really, really low priced area. I mean, this super, super low priced area. So that's how it started. That was kind of phase one. Phase two, I guess you could say, my career went into the Bigger Pockets world, where I, started blogging, and that blogging led to, me starting the podcast with Josh. I started blogging somewhere else first. It was called realestateinyour20s.com. So I went from that to Josh Dorkin's like, well, why don't you come write for Bigger Pockets? So I did that. We started the podcast. That's phase two. Phase three is when I built my real estate business to 13,000 rental units, which is what right now. So I hired a bunch of people. And then phase four is kind of my new thing where it's called Better Life. We're teaching real estate education, but it's all charity driven. So we give away 100% of profits to the fight against human trafficking. So that's kind of my four phases of my kind of career, but we can go wherever you want to go back there and retrace my steps.
When you talk about your phases of these seasons of careers and this that have to do with work-life balance, and I think you mentioned in the past about what was that the one thing with from Gary Keller about there is really no such thing as a work-life balance. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, great question, man. Yeah, Gary Keller says, and Jay Papasan, that there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's a verb. It's work-life balancing. And so, if you look over my career, it's this constant balancing act between aggression and trying to grow and trying to scale, but then also trying to be a good father and a good husband, and then back to growth because I need money, and then back to like, hey, I'd like to surf and hang out in Hawaii, and then back to, I need more money. And so it's like this constant balancing act. And I've learned to be okay with that. I've learned that it's okay to not, like, you're never going to be perfect in like equilibrium and everything's just great and cozy and I can just have a simple, easy life. I think that would be an incredibly boring life. So I like the push and pull and the balancing act for sure.
Yeah, but how do it's not equilibrium so much as, like I mentioned earlier, seasons, right? Sometimes you put more focus on one thing than the other. So what is the touchstone? Where is the metric there? How do you know when you're putting the right effort somewhere and when it should be, or where it needs to be?
That's such a good question, man. I would say, I would give you this one. If I look for warning signs. So my default is to work. I love working. I love building things and creating and the energy that comes from that. If I had my whatever, druthers, is that the word? If I just could do whatever I wanted to, I would just probably work 18 hours a day every single day because I actually love working. Now, if I did that, my health would start to suffer. So I'd look in the mirror and be like, man, I'm getting pudgy. And then I'd say, okay, well, now I need to backpedal the work and I need to go work out once in a while, right? And so my default is work. And then I look for warning signs that other areas of my life are suffering. And the main thing I'm looking for is things like comments from my wife, right? If my wife's like, you've been working a lot lately, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. So I pushed the limit too far. Now I need to go and compensate and push back the other way. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm not one to just sit on the couch. Like, maybe I go surf once in a while and go have some fun or go hang out with friends, but I genuinely love to work and I love to build things. I don't like to work for other people, but I like to work in general. I think that most of us are built that way, that we enjoy just creating. And so, I just look for feedback from family and from my body as to whether or not I'm working too much.
I was just saying, your wife can certainly be a very good warning light on the dashboard. It's a comment from her. What's she trying to tell me? But you certainly seem to have found the cheat code to, well, like other words, a better life. Uh, you you found a lot of success in investing, entrepreneurship, marketing, and family-aligned fitness. And if you've been doing, how do you balance this intentionality against, say, being intense? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I'll give you my framework of how I look at goals and balancing a life well lived. It really begins by I do a regular assessment of my life and all what I call 10 life categories, right? So there's my spirituality, my health and fitness, my career, my finances, my spousing, is that a word? Spousing, my spousal abilities, my parenting, my growth and learning, my environment, the world around me, and I'm probably missing one or two other ones. But so I look at my life regularly, at least every 3 months, and I rate each area of my life on a scale of 1 to 10. How do I feel like I'm doing right now with my health and fitness? How do I feel like I'm doing with my wife and my spousing? And how do I feel like I'm doing with my parenting? And I grade myself. And then I look at that and say, what do I need to focus on this year or this quarter? So every year I set annual goals, but really I'm a big quarterly goal guy. So I say this quarter, where am I going to apply emphasis to get back into balance? And so for a great example, a real life example, a few weeks ago or whatever, we hit the new quarter and I looked at my life and I said, you know what? I feel like my marriage is at a 5 out of 10 right now. I feel like my wife and I aren't connecting very well. We're not talking that much. We're both super busy. And so I don't like that. I'm at a 5 out of 10. So this quarter, I'm going to emphasize a relationship with my wife. So I set 3 goals every quarter based on the 3 areas I most want to work on and be intense about. So now, and then I asked myself, okay, well, what would it do to have a better marriage? How do I go from a 5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10? And that is one of the most powerful questions a person can ask is how do I go from a whatever to a 10 out of 10 in any category? And I brainstormed a bunch of areas and I said a bunch of things. I could go on more date nights with her. I could buy her flowers more often. But ultimately what I settled on was the best way for me to improve my marriage is simply to talk with my wife every single day without kids around. I call it no kid connection time. So now I put it in I have a little journal. So I actually have this journal and I write down the goal every week. And then every day I write down, did I get 15 minutes of connection time with my wife with no kids, no kid connection time? And then as long as I'm doing my habits of no kid connection time, that should improve my marriage. And so that kind of order of going, evaluate my life and tell the truth. Where am I actually at? Have a vision for what I actually want. What does a 10 out of 10 look like? Set goals around that and then set habits around that and then track those habits. If I follow that framework, every single quarter, looking at every area of my life, nothing falls through the cracks. Nothing falls through the cracks. I'm always aware of how I'm doing in all those areas. And then I have an accountability group where we meet every single week and I show the guys my tracking. I'm like, hey, I'm really falling behind on my, no kid connection time with my wife. And then those guys have permission to kind of kick my butt and get me back into alignment with who I want to become. So that's my process for kind of going from who I want to be to actually making that come true.
That accountability part is huge. And it's the positive peer pressure, right? And because we're really good at letting ourselves off the hook. Well, most of us. But, and you've said in the past, there's the more hands-on, the DIY guy, and you couldn't possibly reach the level you're at now being the DIYer. But could you explain maybe, what was it, the DIY to project manager to, tell me go a little more detail into that, please.
Yeah. So I'll preface this with saying, think of Bill Gates or Elon Musk and a plumber who works in he's a single plumber working his own company, fixing toilets every day. The the two gentlemen may have the exact same intelligence. They may have the exact same number of books they've read in life. They maybe have the same age, the same, energy. They might have everything the exact same, yet Bill Gates or Elon Musk can accomplish 1 billion times more than the plumber can. Why? It all comes down to what's in between your two ears, right? Your mindset. And when I say mindset, I'm talking about the way you approach a problem. How you solve a problem is your mindset. And so I kind of categorize there's 4 mindsets that most entrepreneurs, or you can say real estate investors, but really any entrepreneur has. And the mindset you bring to the table dictates how high you can rise, how big you can grow. Like it's impossible to outgrow your mindset, and to outscale your mindset. And I'll give you an example. Let's just say, you have a problem and your problem is I need an extra $1,000 a month in income. That's your problem. The way you solve that problem is dictated by your mindset. So a guy who's what I call the DIY level. So the 4 levels are DIY, project manager, COO, which is like chief operating officer, and then what I call the architect. So the guy at the DIY level or lady at the DIY level says, how do I solve this problem myself? So let's say example of a plumber. The DIY plumber says, okay, I will do more jobs. I'll go out there and door knock. I'll go and tell people that I can fix their plumbing problems. I'll answer the phone. I'll go and fix the problem. Now I make $1,000 a month. But the project manager looks at that problem and says, okay, I'm going to hire a plumber to go out and fix that person's problem, and I'm going to make the $1,000. I'm not going to get my hands dirty. I'm not going to move a toilet. I'm going to be a project manager. I'm going to get this project done by hiring different people, kind of third parties to get it done. The third mindset says, no, I'm a business owner, like a COO, or you could say a CEO, but I like COO as like an operating person. I'm going to build a company. So I'm going to build a plumbing company in which I'm the center of it. I'm the top of the pyramid, and I hire some employees and they go out and do all the work. And I've got, levels and hierarchy, and we have a company culture, and we've got a core values, and, but I'm running the company because I'm in charge. The fourth person, the architect, says, I don't want to be involved at all. I'm going to design the machine, but I'm not part of the machine. So I think of like Richard Branson as the ultimate architect. He's like, oh, it'd be really cool to have this business over here. Boom, you go build it. And then somebody else goes and builds that business. He just visualized it and then brought the energy. See, the architect brings the energy to a situation. And so the reason I bring this up is most people, when they're approaching like trying to build wealth or trying to build a real estate empire, they bring their mindset to the table, and that limits their growth. So if you're a DIYer trying to flip houses, you can only flip maybe 1 house a year if you're doing all the work. If you're doing 100% of the work, you're maybe flipping 1 house a year. If you're a project manager, you could probably do 5 or 10 houses a year. But if you're a COO, you could probably do 50 houses a year, maybe 100 if you're running the company. But if you're an architect, the sky's the limit. There's no limit to how big you can build something. That's where billionaires are made. So I always emphasize, like, try to scale your mindset up. Try to think a little bit bigger. And how do you do that? By hiring the role below you, by hiring the mindset below you. So if you want to be a project manager level, then hire the doers, the DIYers to go do the work. So if you're the plumber, go hire another plumber to take care of it. I got a buddy who's a dentist. For years, he was a DIY dentist. He was the one doing the dental work because he went to school for that. He didn't even know there was another way. But then he kind of got into this world and this idea of like, you don't have to do everything yourself. And he hires another dentist to work out of his office. Now that dentist does the 80% of all the dental fillings and cavity checks. My dentist buddy doesn't have to do any of that. Now he was still really heavily involved, but he was like, I don't want to be heavily involved. I want to run a company. So then he hires some administrators. He hires a personal assistant. He hires a marketing team. He hires a couple more dentists. And now he's running a company of dentists, and now he only has to work 10 hours a week, maybe 15 hours a week, just kind of overseeing it. Now he's not quite at architect level yet. That'd be somebody who goes, I'm going to go buy that dental practice over there. I'm going to go raise some capital, buy it. And I never even step foot in the door. That's how the architect thinks. So I'll shut up at that point. But that's how I think of the mindset levels of leadership and entrepreneurship. And it really matters. And the great point is, last point I'll make is this. You think you talk long, I talk longer. The last point I'll make is this. You choose your mindset. Like, although we have a default mindset that we come into a situation with, usually from our job, whatever our job was, like if you're a project manager at work, you're probably going to be a project manager in your wealth building. You choose your mindset. At any point, you can say, no, I do not want to be the DIYer anymore. I'm now going to be an architect. Is it easy? No, but you get to choose your mindset. And the way you bring that mindset and you get that mindset is by surrounding yourself with other people who have that mindset. I rest my case.
That's a strong argument. But wait, tell me this then. Are these echelons, these levels, are they,
Yeah.
do you have to do one at a time? And do you have to like be promoted up to it? Do you have to learn? Is there an education you need to take? Or are certain people suited to be COOs or architects?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. No one's ever asked me that. I think there is an educational component to this. You have to learn somehow. You can learn through osmosis by being around other people who are there. You can read by reading a book. Like if you want to be a good COO, read the book Traction from Gino Wickman. If you want to be a good CEO, read the book 4 Disciplines of Execution by Chris McChesney. Those books will help you get there. If you want to be a good architect, read some biographies of Richard Branson and Elon Musk. If you want to be a good project manager, there's 1,000 books on that, I'm sure, on project management. And if you want to be a DIYer, then go watch YouTube videos on how to fix a toilet. You're right. There's an educational component to any of them. What's interesting is that you don't always take, like I find myself in some areas being a really good architect. Like when I built Open Door Capital, my real estate company, I built the company without me being a piece of it. I built an engine, but I'm not part of that engine. I mean, other than, I guess you could say, the face of it. Like I'm the face, I'm the energy, just like Richard Branson or Elon Musk is the energy, but they're not typically working day to day, coding in their companies, right? I did the same thing with Open Door Capital. But when it comes to like the Better Life Tribe, I almost feel like I'm like a DIYer in there, just working every day. I'm not by myself. I have a big team, but I'm in there every single day working. And then I ask myself sometimes, why am I doing this? Why don't I just treat it like a different mindset? And then I do. It's just being cognizant of the level you're operating at. And a good way to ask yourself that question is to say, like, you remember the bracelets back in the day in like the Christian circles? It was like WWJD. All the Christians had bracelets. Like I had one as a kid. WWJD. What would Jesus do? And we'd all wear those wristbands. And somebody's like, hey, you want to smoke some pot? And you look down at your bracelet and be like, what would Jesus do? No, I don't want to smoke any pot, right? That was the idea of these bracelets. I literally have a bracelet that says WWEMD. What would Elon Musk do? And I just ask myself, what would Elon Musk do? Or what would Richard Branson do in this situation? And that immediately zaps me back into a different mindset. So to the long answer to your short question, I think there is an educational component. There's a time component where you just get better over time at doing it. But there's also an intentionality component where you just have to be intentional about the kind of person and the kind of leader and entrepreneur you want to be.
I think I had a wristband that said, what wouldn't Jesus do? But as maybe a counterpoint to what you just said.
Maybe.
But as a counterpoint to what you just said.
Yeah, epic life. Epic life. Yeah, what wouldn't Jesus do? Do that.
I think I saw a t-shirt that had Jesus with a hang glider. Anyways, gosh, I don't want to go off tangent. But as a counterpoint to what you just said, you're an architect. You had this vision of better life. But are you an architect in one area of your life, or are you an architect for career so you can be a DIYer in your family life? Or that's maybe a bad example. You should be a DIYer in your family life, I think.
It's a great point, actually. I would say this, like there is ways to run your life more like a project manager or a COO. I would not, you can't outsource your push-ups, right? You can't outsource loving your kids, but you can outsource picking up your groceries. Like I can treat my grocery shopping like a COO would, or like a project manager would. So I don't have to be the one going to the grocery store. So like a project manager with groceries would just go to Instacart or whatever it's called, Instacart, and they would order their groceries to be delivered. That's like a project manager level. A COO would probably hire a house assistant, which is what I've done. I have a house assistant. Her name is Brielle. Brielle watches the kids when I can't watch them, like babysits them, but she also goes shopping for me and she cleans my house every single day. or 5 days a week. So I operate like a COO of my family, or of my home, I should say, of my home environment. And so you can bring these mindsets into things other than business. Even fitness. Yes, you can't outsource your push-ups, but I can hire a personal trainer to show up at the gym with me and then push me. That's like a project manager. Like, so there are, I could outsource my meals if I wanted to. I could have somebody create, make the most healthy meals in the world. So yeah, you could outsource other areas of your life. And that's not some people might be listening thinking I'm just trying to be lazy. And that's not the truth. Like, the truth is there are high value tasks that I have identified as high value. Hanging out with my kids, super high value. Spending time with my wife, high value. Building businesses, high value. Taking the garbage out, hauling it down the road to the driveway to the road, that's not high value. That doesn't add value to my life or anybody else's. So why not give somebody else money so they can support their family, so I can spend more time building businesses and spending time with the things that actually matter in my life. So I'm a big believer of that. And where actually a lot of this came from is from the military. Now, I'm not a military guy. I know you have, some experience there, but like, how does a military operate? I've used this analogy before. Like, the general in a war is not on the front lines with a rifle, picking off the enemy. He's in the back room looking over a map, designing the strategy for the battle. Now, the guy below the general, what's that, lieutenant, right? Like, I don't know military stuff, but like the lieutenant maybe now is out there, but he's not on the front lines. He's maybe like behind his guys, helping them know what to do. And then you have the next level and the next level, I don't know. And then you have cadet, right? A cadet's like the front line. That's the guy out there doing the DIY work. So it works in military. It works in Fortune 500 companies. It also works in almost every single area of our life. It's just the mindset you bring will dictate how big you can grow and how successful you can become.
It's an excellent example, but that general, he came up, he started as a lieutenant, maybe even started as a private. And that Elon Musk, he has that mindset, like Jason Drees talks about framing your life. If you just look at it like, from a different perspective, maybe you can change your mindset from DIY or COO to that architect, but you can't just imagine it and make it happen. So did you need to say build the Beardy Brandon reputation brand? Did you need to go through the steps of buying the first duplex or writing that first blog or the first podcast before you could, before you were the Brandon Turner of today that could start the Better Life community?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I mean, it doesn't, the more people who know, like, and trust you, the easier it is to inspire people to then work for you. That's for sure. So it's definitely easier having the personal brand, which is why I do push people all the time to like start having a personal brand is wonderful. Having podcasts and writing books, all that, it matters because everything becomes easier. It's like being a hot woman, right? Like, they have a really attractive woman. Life is just easier for her, right? Because she goes anywhere and just things just happen naturally for her because she's a hot girl. And she doesn't even realize it. Just life is easier for the hot girl. The same is true for a personal brand. Life is just easier in a lot of ways. Now, it's also more difficult in some ways, right? The hot girl's constantly fighting off, creepy dudes. And the personal brand guy, I'm constantly fighting off opportunities that people need from me. And there are downsides, but yeah, 100% it's easier. Now, that said, there are a million examples of entrepreneurs who have a higher mindset, like a more of a COO or a engineer or an architect kind of level mindset that don't have a personal brand. And that didn't start at, private and work their way up. They just started at a higher level. And that's probably because they saw it from somebody. Hey, I'll give you an example. I have a buddy, his very first year flipping houses, flipped 100 houses. He bought and sold 100 houses his very first year. Now, my first year, I bought and sold one house, and it was hell because I did all the work and I fixed everything up myself. He did 100 houses. And when I asked him how you did 100 houses, he said, well, all my friends were doing 100 houses a year. I didn't know that's not how you're supposed to do it. He didn't even realize that wasn't the normal course of action. where all my friends were flipping one house a year. So I went and did what I saw. He went and did what he saw. So he started at a COO level, his very beginning in real estate. He just started there because like that's what he saw his friends do. Of course you'd hire a team. Of course you'd have a company culture. Of course you do all the things that a COO would do because that's what all he saw. So it is possible to start there or to force your way up there just by getting in the right rooms.
That ties right back to the people you surround yourself with and accountability. Yeah, that tribe that you know, the room you're in. So how does one person, maybe they don't know, like would say, I want to start, I want to have that real estate portfolio. I want to start that business, but I don't even know where to get started. Yeah, you know how there's people that jump in the Facebook groups or the forums and say, "Here I am. Who wants to be my mentor?"
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And then nobody raises their hand. Weird. Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who wants to be my best friend and help me do everything for free? Oh, okay, great. Yeah. So here's the advice I have for newbies trying to get into real estate in that way. Yeah. Don't go to a forum or a Facebook group and say, who wants to be my mentor? Because no one's going to take you up on it. Instead, find somebody who most accurately represents who you want to become, not just what you want to have, but who you want to become. And then by extension, what you want to have, right? So don't just like, there's a lot of people who have a lot of money that are complete dirtbags. They're on their 7th marriage and their kids hate them. Like, don't mimic them necessarily. Maybe there's lessons you can learn from them, but find a person who you're like, that is somebody I want to follow. Now, maybe you can't get in their room. Maybe you can't hire them one-on-one because they're super expensive. Like if you want to sit with me on a coaching call, you're going to pay, whatever, 20 grand for 4 hours. Like most people just can't afford that. That's fine. You don't need to hire me for 4 hours to sit down with you. You need to read my book. It'll cost you $20, right? Like it spends you 5 hours reading a book. And then maybe it's like, hey, I'm going to go to a conference that he's speaking at. And then maybe I get to shake the guy's hand. Maybe I just get to listen to, at the conference, there's going to be other people that are just like him. So find a person that you want to become more like, and then follow that person online, see what they're doing, ask them how they run their life, what's working, what's not. If you can find that person in your world, it's even better. And like you find a local landlord who's doing what you want to do. Great. Find that person. You want to find somebody, you're flipping houses. Great. Find somebody who's doing that. You want to start a small business, walking dogs. Find somebody else who started a small business that's successful and has a good family life, and see if you can't just provide value, like do what you can to get in their world, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's from afar, even if it's just from stalking their Instagram. You're by osmosis, you're going to become more like that person by doing what that person does.
Guess who's getting a new neighbor in Kihei? I hope you've changed your mind about running.
Neighbor, you can live in my house, man.
I haven't run.
Come on.
I haven't run a marathon in Hawaii yet. I'm knocking up all the 50 states. So,
there are some marathons here. Maui Marathon's coming up, I think, in like a week. You got to train. Come on, man.
State 2. Anyways,
did you really? And did you?
I thought it was.
What was your time? Was it a good time?
But I want.
Yeah. What time did you get it? Like a good time? Are you proud of it? How'd you do?
Well, it wasn't about times.
You can't just drop it. You ran a couple marathons.
I did one on Monday, and I did another one in another state on Tuesday. So
you did 2 marathons in a row.
So the times were terrible, respectively. I mean, but it was an adventure. But the other thing I want to talk to you about, though, is how the Better Life community is going for you. And really, when we talk about that mindset or frame of mind, how far in advance do you plan out that roadmap, that success timeline? Did you have any idea that you'd be building this Better Life community when you were creating that $19 calculator on your couch at 24 years old or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, no, Steve Jobs has a great quote that says you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And so like it's, I could look back and see all the dots that got me to where I am. But yeah, there's no way of knowing where I was going to head. But just being open to opportunities, saying yes to things and just moving forward continually. you always end up in a good spot at some point. Like it seems to always work out at some end. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely love what we're building with Better Life Tribe. And it took whatever. I've been in real estate now for almost 20 years. It took a long time to get to where I am today. And it could have gone a million different ways. Again, there's a million dots that could have gone a million directions. And it got to where it got. But at the same time, I always had a plan. Like I've always had a plan, even from day one. The original plan was financial freedom. The next plan was like $1 million net worth. The next plan was to write a best-selling book and to make passive income off a book. And then it was to have a big podcast. Maybe those two switched. And then like it was to, build a real estate company that could buy $50 million of real estate. And then it was, I'm going to buy $1 billion of real estate, which we just crossed. And now it's like, I want to buy $10 billion of real estate. So there's always a plan, but I'm a big believer in the phrase strong opinions loosely held. I love that idea of like I have and I'll translate it to like goals. I have strong opinions on my goals, but they're fairly loosely held, long-term ones. What I mean by that is like, yes, I want $10 billion of real estate, but you know what? I don't know what life's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years. So I'm going to loosely hold those. I'm going to move toward that. But things change all the time. A great example. Let's go back to military example, right? You drop behind enemy lines. You got to go 100 miles to go rendezvous with some, whatever informant, right? And so you have a map in front of you. It says you're going to take this river. You're going to follow it this 50 miles. Then you're going to go across this mountain and you're going to cross this bridge. You're going to get there. So you start going, you get there and you realize that there's a bunch of enemy in the way in the river. And you're like, okay, well, I guess I can't follow my map anymore. I still have the long-term objective. It's going to take a different way to get there. And then you find out in the middle of the mission, your informant's killed. Oh, shoot. Well, now your mission changed. Okay, well, now I just got to get out of here. Okay, well, how am I going to I can't go back the way I did. So you have like this, you have constant goals, but the goals are constantly changing because life is just fluid. And we have no idea what's going to make us ultimately happy or make us feel fulfilled. And so I want to have strong goals loosely held. Long-term. Short-term goals, I don't change them. Like if it's a quarterly goal, I hold those tight. Long-term goals, loosely held.
Is there some method you use to make sure you're still on the right path? Or, you've gone through quite a bit of transition phases. Especially, say somebody wants to leave the W-2 and, go in alone, not alone, but as an entrepreneur. That's a big transition. That's a big leap. It's terrifying for some. And I can imagine you had built your brand on Bigger Pockets. To take that step away, it must have been a big transition, a big leap, a big decision. So what was it that was telling you that it was time to go? Maybe that was the question.
Yeah, and I think this resonates probably with a lot of people, like why I left and how I left Bigger Pockets. At the end of the day, yes, I had some equity in Bigger Pockets, but Bigger Pockets was a W-2 job. It was a job, right? I worked for somebody else. Private equity owned it. I had to, I had a very loose schedule. I had a very cushy, comfortable job, but it was still a job. It wasn't mine. I couldn't really affect the outcome overall because there's 100 employees, and I wasn't in charge. And I wouldn't want to be in charge because I don't like being in charge of things that aren't mine. And so how do I leave that? A couple of things. Number one is I created a bridge to the next thing. A lot of people just abandon their job with no idea what they're going to do next. I took years from the time I knew I was going to leave to actually leave. And I created a bridge there, meaning like security along the way. Now, if I hated the job, I would have switched to something that I didn't hate, but I liked the job. So I created something else, which was Open Door Capital. I created the next thing. Now that serves actually two purposes, right? I was able to not lose my identity in the process, where most people who leave a job after, a decade, their identity is wrapped in their job and they're just lost for years, or they sell their business. They're lost for years. Like I had my new identity. Oh no, I'm a real estate investor. Like that. Bigger Pockets is not my identity. I'm a real estate investor first and foremost. So mentally that helped a lot. But then I saved up a lot of money. I got a lot of passive income from both real estate and some other sources, some royalties on books and things. So leaving wasn't as hard because I was just transitioning to the next phase. It still takes courage to leave anything. It took me probably a lot longer than maybe it should have because it's scary to leave what's comfortable. But at the end of the day, a job has a limit, almost always going to have a limit on your growth and your potential. And I knew that I had exceeded my limit, like that I was hitting a ceiling that I could not get above because it wasn't mine. And so I had to take the plunge and take the courage to say, okay, I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna do my best to build an identity somewhere else and build something else. So that's what I did.
Yeah. The other side of the coin on that, though, is while you're building this bridge, right? You're doing something new, something that you may not be experienced at, may not have the expertise at yet. And maybe it's like the dark side of the moon. You've got the imposter syndrome. How do you deal with that? Or did you experience that at all?
Yes and no. I mean, I'll give you a couple examples maybe. So I had already been a real estate guy before Bigger Pockets, during Bigger Pockets, and after Bigger Pockets. I never let that go, right? So I put my 10,000 hours in, for real estate investing. So I had the confidence to know I can do this. Now, I'd never built a commercial real estate company, like a big one. I'd never hired employees before. So yes, there was some imposter syndrome around, like, can I actually do this? But it goes back to what I said earlier. I started putting myself in rooms with guys that was the default. Their default is, hire a team, build a team, outsource everything. And so like I saw what they were doing and that gave me confidence to do it myself. And so that lessens imposter syndrome when I know that it's not an imposter. It's just a different way of doing business. And I am capable and worthy of doing that. And I put in the work. I've read hundreds of business books. So it's not like I'm just trying to go and start a dog walking company, having no idea about dogs or walking or business, right? Like I'm not trying to do something completely random. I think if you like have this dream of like, oh, I want to write a book and that's going to be my answer to financial freedom. So I'm going to leave my job to write a book. I'm like, okay, well, great. Have you ever written before? No. Did you ever take a class on writing? Nope. Have you ever read a book on writing? Nope. Do you have any skill set that you're going to teach in your book? Nope. Okay. Well, good luck on that. You're almost guaranteed to fail. And so you deserve to fail because you didn't do any of the work needed. Like you're trying to get an outcome for the work you didn't do, right? You're trying to reap the rewards without having to put in the effort ahead of time. And so in which case, you deserve to have imposter syndrome because you're an imposter. And so maybe that's a good question for people to ask themselves. If you're feeling imposter syndrome, is that valid? Is that a valid point? Or have you done the work needed to not be an imposter?
So some of it is a warning signal that you need to do more work, but you got to balance that against what you already do know, and maybe it's just negative tone.
Yep. And there's a lot of testing that can be done, right? Like let's say you wanted to, again, let's go back to dog walking business. You just really think that walking dogs is going to be your future, right? So, okay, before you quit your job, you can very easily go and put an ad on a telephone pole that says, I will walk your dog for $20 an hour. Great. And if people are like, yeah, you can walk my dog for $20 an hour, and then you go and do it on the weekends and evenings, and you find out, I actually really like walking dogs. This is right. Okay. Is there an audience for it? Well, yeah, people are asking me for it. People are calling me off this one ad. Clearly there's a demand for it and I like doing it. Now let me do a couple more dogs. Can I walk 5 dogs? Okay, great. Now I can walk 5 dogs. Now I'm figuring this out. Now I'm getting to a point where I'm just stressed out of my mind. I'm walking dogs every single night of the week and on the weekends, and I'm working my full-time job. Man, this is hell. I'm ready to make the jump. And now I jump into a dog walking business. That makes so much more sense to me than the person who's like, I think I'm going to start a dog walking business, and they quit their job right there, especially when they quit their job with no reserves. Like they don't deserve to win because they've never walked a dog before. Walk the dog first, make sure it works, validate the idea, and then make the jump.
You mentioned writing a book, and you've written several great books. In fact, I mentioned one of yours on your show, and I share it all the time. When somebody asks about project management, I steer them towards your book. In fact, I listened to it, then I went back, started it over, and wrote down the notes. Actually, I outlined every chapter, and it turned into our SLP. So I love it. I enjoy your writing, but you've described in the past your own writing process, and you've even said writing a book is easy. Can you? It's a you use a metaphor of Absolutely love reading your books. And I share with everybody who asks about project management, your book, the book on managing rental properties. And I even turned it into our own SOP for managing our properties. Yeah, but you talked about the process for writing a book, much like building a brick wall. And you even said that it was easy to write a book. Can you explain that a little bit? Like, how do you make writing a book easy?
Yeah, man. A couple thoughts here. And this applies to like writing a book is a good metaphor for almost every area of success. So even if somebody listening to this doesn't care about writing a book, it's a good metaphor and a good lesson, I think. So when I write a book, the first book I ever wrote, the book on no and low money down, or investing in real estate with no and low money down, I wrote when I wanted to. I didn't have a clear outline or a plan. I just kind of would write when I felt like writing. And it took me a solid year to write that book, like 50, 60,000 words, something like that. It took me a year to get there. Now, when I wrote the book on rental property investing, I went to Starbucks and I outlined every single chapter and subchapter on a back of note cards. So I had like 10 chapters, 10 subchapters. So I had like 100 note cards. I think it was a little more than that. But now on each note card, I wrote down the general idea of what that little section is going to be about. So now I had 100 note cards. So then every single day I just wake up and go, okay, I'm going to write 1,000 words today on this topic. And I already know what I'm about to write. And then every single day, I didn't miss one day. Every day for 100 days, I wrote at least 1,000 words. And I got finished and I had the entire book done. It was super easy, super simple because it was a couple things I did, right? Number one, I planned ahead of time, right? Like failing to plan is planning to fail, right? So I planned ahead of time, outlined exactly what it was going to look like and how I was going to do it. Now it changed along the way. Again, strong goals, loosely held, but I had a plan, very detailed to what I was going to do. I sharpened my axe before cutting down the tree, right? It's that quote from Abe Lincoln. If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. So I sharpened the axe really well. I then used consistency and like the idea of don't break the chain, don't break the pattern. Every single day I write. That was the rule. And so because of that, there was no question. It was never like, oh, should I do this today or should I not do this? I wasn't relying on self-discipline. I was relying on habit. I was relying on a system. This is what I do. And then lastly, I had a punishment in place. I said, I will not fall asleep until I've written 1,000 words. And so there was a few nights where I was up at 2 a.m. writing my 1,000 words because I really was holding to that. I will not fall asleep without it. And that was a punishment. So then I got really good at writing in the morning because I didn't like those evening punishments. And so writing a book was actually easy when you put it in that format. The same is true for almost everything. All success is simply a series of like short tasks, right? You could build a rocket to the moon with a series of little 5-minute tasks, right? Like order this part. Now there's a lot of tasks, but it's like order this part, connect it to this part, order this part, print this part, go here, right? Have this phone call this guy, send this email. Like you can build a rocket in a series of 5-minute tasks. And so the key there is building a plan ahead of time and then consistently knocking out those 5, 10, 20-minute tasks, whatever they are. For me, writing, it was just writing 1,000 words. For you, it might be making an offer on a real estate deal or analyzing a property, going to a meetup, going to an open house. Just do the work consistently every single day and never miss a day. And you're going to find tremendous success in whatever you are looking to do.
That's exactly what was one of the rules of one of the steps within Greg McKeown's effortless of essentialism, and he talks about pace. Just do the same thing or the right steps consistently every single day, or the same pattern all the time. So, in fact, one of the examples is writing a book. No matter what. Do 500 words or within, that range. Don't overdo it. Don't underdo it. Just do it. So for you now, what is most exciting? What are you working towards? Where are you taking Better Life and where are you taking your own?
Yeah, man. Great question. So, in my own real estate investing, like I love what I'm doing. I love buying big real estate deals, mobile home parks, apartment complexes, self-storage, all that. I'm having a lot of fun with that. So I'll just keep doing that. We can buy a few $100 million a year worth of real estate. So we'll just keep doing that as long as the market cooperates, and we'll slow down if we have to. We don't have to buy if we don't want to, but if the right deals come across our plate and we can raise the capital, we'll keep doing that. So that machine runs pretty well. With Better Life, I just want to make that, like, I want to use that to give away $50 million a year. That's the vision, is $50 million a year given away to charity. And to get there, I need 10,000 people in the tribe. Like 10,000 people paying for this kind of mastermind should get me to $50 million a year. Now, that's a lot of people, 10,000 people, especially when people come and go and, people are in real estate for a little while, then out of it. But that's what we're shooting for. We're at like 1,300 members right now, something like that. And we're just going to keep growing that thing and giving away as much money as we can to fight human trafficking.
That's amazing. Is it, you said for human trafficking?
Yeah. There's a lot of causes in the world that are important, right? But it's like, I finally discovered, I actually having a conversation with Tim Tebow, actually. He was at an event I was at, and Tim Tebow, the ex-football player, was just sharing about the horrors of human trafficking. And I remember thinking at that event, like, this is something I can dedicate my life to and try to make a little bit of a dent in it. This is something that I can go all in, because it's horrible, the lives, especially of these women who just get sex trafficked. And it's not just women sex trafficking. There's a lot of types of trafficking out there, child labor, and there's employment trafficking and all this stuff. And it's just rough. Like, I'm just such a big believer in freedom, right? As an American, we believe so strongly in freedom, yet a good portion of the world, 50 million plus people, are trapped in actual slavery right now. Like, at a higher point today than at any other point in human history. And sometimes worse conditions than any other point in history. So it's like, if we can do something about that, just requires a lot of money. So, that's one thing God gifted me with, is the ability to make money. So I'm going to keep doing it.
It's amazing. We don't even realize, even those spam text messages where that, hey, Becky, sorry, missed you. Those are coming from, someplace in South Asia by somebody who was a slave in one of those, phone, I don't know, some warehouse somewhere, but you don't realize it, but there is slave labor all around the world. And, I absolutely commend you on the effort you're putting into it. And I want to thank you so much for, agreeing to be on the show, your patience with the connection issues. And of course,
my internet goes out every single day, all the time. So I'm very used to it. I'm just glad it was your fault this time.
All right. Let me know if any houses open up on your street. And,
yeah, will do.
If anybody wants to, find out more about you, link up with your community, give to your amazing cause, where do they find you?
Yeah, Tinder, the app, Tinder, just swipe right when you see my face. We'll be connected right away. Or you can go to Instagram. You can go to my Instagram, Beardy Brandon, beard with a Y, Beardy Brandon. Or I have a text message newsletter, beardybrandon.com. It's a free newsletter I send out every week with books that I'm reading. So beardybrandon.com, beard with a Y at the end of it. And you can join my text message newsletter.
Awesome. We'll get those into the show notes. And, it's funny when you said Tinder. That's how I actually connected with my wife. Not literally on Tinder, but after I went blind, I also was divorced. I made some joke on Facebook about how this Tinder thing is not accessible. And she said she had a comment about how, that was, funny or something. It's like, oh, I made it funny. And then we struck up a conversation. Anyways, Tinder does make connections.
Tinder does, even in a roundabout way.
Well, again, thank you. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, sharing your mindset with our community.